Hi guys, Belladonna Black here. Here are 5 true creepy stories from the subreddit Let's Never Meet. So turn off the lights, get comfortable, and let's begin. Number 1. This story isn't overly scary, but certainly made me feel frightened at the time. I used to work at Target in Melbourne back in 2003 when I was 18. I'm not what you call an average female. I'm 6'2", lots of tattoos, and not hard to miss if you were to come to the checkout. A quick layout of the store. It was 3 levels, including a basement level, where the DVDs were, and where I used to work a few shifts. The majority of the time, though, I would spend working at the checkouts. One shift, an older man with grey hair and glasses came to the checkouts. First thing I noticed is he didn't have any products to buy. He says, "Whoa, you remind me so much of my granddaughter." Harmless, right? I smiled and joked about how she must be a great girl. He then began to ask me about my family and where I grew up. Being from Adelaide, I knew I probably didn't know this man. It was weird, but not unsettling. Thankfully, there were customers behind him, and I politely said I needed to get back to work. He smiled and said he might bring us some photos one day to show me. I smiled and he left. Didn't think much about the encounter at all after that, until 2 weeks later he was back. I wasn't worried, but just annoyed, being 18 and not interested. He showed me photos of his granddaughter and family, and there was a slight resemblance. Again, being a busy store, I had a lot of work to do, and excused myself to get back to work. He stood in the store, staring at me for a long while, which I noticed, and this was making me uncomfortable. My biggest mistake was not letting my supervisor know. I didn't really tell anyone, except for a friend who asked who he was. Skip to 3 weeks later, and yep, you guessed it, there he was. But this time, he looked sad. He managed to get me aside as I was walking to my break. The photos he showed me were of a funeral. First of all, who the fuck takes photos of a funeral? Anyway, he said that his daughter and granddaughter were murdered by his son-in-law, and he missed them very much. I kind of felt sorry for him, but then he said something that sent shivers up my spine. "I know that you're my granddaughter. I'm so happy to have found you again." What the actual fuck? My face went red, as it does when I get nervous. "I don't think so, sir. I have missed you so much." He began to cry and grabbed my arm. He tried to hug me, but luckily one of my tall managers walked by and I pulled away. "Hey Grant, do you still need help with that cage?" Grant looked confused, but he must have seen my unease because he nodded. "Yeah, that'd be good." I looked back at the crying grey old man and smiled nervously. We got in the elevator and I escaped upstairs. I then told my manager what was happening, and I noticed how much this freaked me out. Thankfully, I didn't see the man for a few weeks. Having a week's holiday helped. A friend did say she saw him around, and he was looking for me. I came back to work, and not a week later, I come to the front registers to start my shift, and I saw him. Luckily, he didn't see me. I stopped and headed back to the elevators. I found my manager and told him what was going on. He told me to go downstairs to the basement and stay there until he came and got me. I don't know what happened, except what I was told. Apparently, the man started yelling and saying that his granddaughter worked here, and started yelling that he needs to see me. The security and my manager tried for about 10 minutes to get him out of the store. He had with him photos, female clothing, and a bracelet. I can only assume they were from his granddaughter. He started screaming his granddaughter's name and had to be dragged out of the store. From that day on, I spent most of the time in the basement, working the registers there. I left that job to move back to Adelaide soon after. I did kind of feel sorry for the man, having suffered such loss. He was obviously not accepting their deaths. In saying that though, old grey-haired Target man, let's never meet again. Number 2. This happened about 3 weeks ago. I still haven't told my parents, for obvious reasons. Here's a little background information. I'm a 19-year-old female. I'm 5'9" and underweight for my height, because I've survived cancer twice, and extremely paranoid due to this extreme bullying that had happened 3 years ago. But that's a story for another time. I live in a rural part of Northern California. The closest major city is 2 hours away. The town I live in, everyone practically knows each other by name. My neighbour's daughter is a heroin addict and has a history of being bipolar. She also has a daughter that's about 8 or 9 years of age. The neighbour in question, let's call her Abigail, for her privacy, is in her late 70s, early 80s, and has a restraining order on her daughter because she's, to steal a phrase from my dad, an incompetent daughter and mother, due to her lifestyle choices. Abigail's daughter, Stephanie, had been trying to get onto her mother's property for 2 nights straight to get her young daughter back, but never did for whatever reason, since she was able to successfully get on her property twice. So, it's late at night, around 2-3 in the morning. I can't sleep due to an extreme case of insomnia, and my phobia sleep due to my sleep paralysis. I'm looking around on the internet for good horror stories that are true when I hear rustling outside of my window. Our AC is broken, so we leave our windows open at night. Suddenly I hear a pop. Instantly, my mind kicks into fight or flight. I pick up my knife, which is on my desk next to me. It's a flat-out dagger, to be exact. The dagger's blade is about half as long as my forearm. I dash to my window to see the daughter trying to climb through my window. I place my dagger under her chin and look her directly in the eyes. Do not so much as fucking come in here. You're clearly not fucking wanted around here. Get off my goddamn property, you fucking addict, I say in a low, menacing voice. Even though I'm absolutely scared shitless, I'm even more scared about how my cold voice was. Stephanie didn't say anything, just nodded and placed a scream back like a small child. She ran away towards the road, where I heard her get into a car and drive off. Now, I wish this was the end of it, but it wasn't. 2 nights later, I've just smoked a bowl, and I'm listening to 25 scary true stories on YouTube in the darkness of my room. I don't really like light. It bothers my eyes a lot for whatever reason. Finding myself getting really paranoid, I stop listening to it and put on some music to calm down. When I hear the familiar rustling and pop of my screen on my window, bolting upright, I dart through my dark room to where my dagger is and pick it up and run to my window. Seeing her hands on my sill, I immediately stab them. Stephanie screams. I tell her to shut the hell up. She does, or at least tries to. I run out of my room hoping that she'll stay there, and I grab my mom's keys and my wallet and run through the laundry room into the garage and out the garage door. My house is set up so that my bedroom shares a wall with the laundry room and another wall with the garage, so I can hear when my family comes home. Also, right outside my window is a back door that leads into the garage, and it's always locked. So I go through the back door and thank God she's still there. Adrenaline is running through my system as I haul her up and forcefully drag her to my mother's car and shove her in it. Shaking, I get in the driver's side and turn on the car and drive as fast and safely as I could to the hospital. On the way there, I asked her why the hell she was trying to break into my house, and here's what she told me. The previous owner of the house I owned, who was a drug dealer, and he would go around dressing up as a cop to steal other people's drugs. I guess it was because he didn't feel like growing weed or making any hardcore drugs like heroin and meth. So he would let her stay in that room for long periods of time, and would even sell her, and got her addicted to heroin. She thought that invitation extended to the next owners, which it really didn't. The second time around, she thought everyone had been asleep before trying to sneak into my room once more. Apparently, she forgot my threat because of how much shit was in her system during and after the confrontation 3 nights before. Upon getting to the hospital, I parked my car quickly and get her inside the ER. Soon as Stephanie is out of the waiting room, I tell the woman behind the counter the entire story, and asked for her to call the police. She did, and within 15 agonising minutes, they're there. I tell them everything that's going on. They told me that she'd be put in rehab, then on to jail for counts of trespassing, as well for breaking her restraining order. All I can say now is that I hope that she actually is. Number 3. So, my fiancé and I decided to have a date. Being tight on funds, we decided to go to our local grocery store, dick around in the toy section, being the wonderfully mature adults we are, buy some little stuff and then head over to McDonald's for something to have for dinner. So, we get done at the store and we head over to McDonald's. Mind you, we're walking and it's about 9:30 p.m. and it's dark as hell. We went and sat in a booth and decided what we wanted to eat. We went up, made our order, and took it back to our table. We were eating our food when I glanced over and saw a guy with a pretty sweet-looking top hat on. Yeah, it's like July, almost August, and this guy is wearing a random top hat. But it was pretty fucking sweet. I mentioned it to my fiancé. They didn't see the guy. Had a quick exchange about him, and that was it. I'm sitting, eating my fries, when I noticed my fiancé made a face like something really, really scared them. Like, to the core, and disturbed them. I asked them what was wrong, and they quickly shook their heads. But I know better. I kept pushing, and I finally got an answer. The guy with the top hat was just staring at them. Just staring. You know that kind of stare that creepy serial killers give their victims from across the room in movies? Yeah, that kind of stare. Of course, this pisses me off, and I glare at him. He sees me glare, and quickly looks away. I start making motions to show, hey, this one is mine, hoping to make him stop. And for about a minute, it did. Long enough for him to walk outside and look at them through the blinds that were closed. He poured his drink out on the ground and walked back in to stare at them again. I was just making slightly possessive markers, suggestion we should call someone for a ride, but there was no one. We spoke quietly and I tried our best to sit and eat in peace. He socialised with his friends by the entrance and I tried to continue glaring at him, but at the same time I was still trying to enjoy my date. We started to loosen up when his friend came over and tried to sit down with us. She didn't ask, she just said, I'm going to come sit over here. I was insisting that she leave us alone. She sat down, and when I told her to leave again, she asked why. I repeated myself, and she got up. Oh, I'm so sorry. The guy had walked over and was staring at my fiancé again. After his friend walked away, he stood there, staring. I glared at him and told him to go away. He growled and glared at me before he walked away. I looked at my fiancé and we decided to go home. I pulled out my pocket knife and I kept it ready to flip the fuck open the whole time we were walking home. The first crosswalk had a car pull up, which was filled with his friends. We practically ran the rest of the way home. I kept my fiancé in front of me the whole time, ready to fucking cut someone if I had to. We made it home fine, thank God. We live in a small town that most people have never heard of. So most people think nothing really happens out here in this little tiny suburb. But it does. And I swear to God, never again. I never want to meet this fucker again. Number 4. Kinda long, but creepy and funny. So this happened almost 5 years ago, back in late August 2010. The night that my friend Jack and I had moved to the city for university from our smallish hometown. We moved into a house with 2 friends, Aaron and Ryan, who had already been living at the house for 2 or 3 months before we arrived. But Ryan was out of town visiting family before school started at the time. It was getting close to 1 a.m. Jack was asleep. Aaron was in his room doing his thing and I was playing COD with Ryan online when the doorbell rang. Aaron went to answer it. I just assumed a friend of his had come over by, for whatever reason, so I just continued with the game. I heard him state his first and last names, That obviously struck me as odd. When I heard the door close, I told Ryan that I'd be back in a minute and went to find out what was happening. Aaron had stepped outside for a second, and when I got down the hall, he was coming back inside. I asked who was at the door, and he said, "I've no fucking idea. She just asked to borrow my phone, so I gave it to her, and she called the police because Satan had come to her apartment and told her that she had to sleep with him or she'd die. Then she'd die in 3 days if she didn't, so she needed them to take her somewhere safe. They asked to speak to me, asked me my name, and told me that they were coming, and if we felt threatened, to call again, and they'd come sooner." I just looked at him for a moment with a blank expression, foreseeing that I had to tell Ryan. We went down the hall to my room, grabbed my headset, and started telling him the story. Jack had just woken up and came out of his room, groggy, and said, "Wait, what? Who? Satan?" We told him the story as well, and we stood outside his room making fun of her and laughing. Aaron told us that she looked like the after picture of someone that did a lot of crack of meth. So she was probably out of it, and after a couple of minutes, there was a knock at the door again. We looked at Aaron and told him that he had brought Satan Lady into our lives and had to go deal with her. She told him that she could hear us talking through Jack's open window, which was right next to the front step where she was waiting, and asked us to at least wait until she left before start making fun of her. When he closed the door and was walking back to us in the hall, he noticed a knife sitting on a box in full view of the front door from when we were unpacking earlier. So he started humming and casually grabbed it, so she couldn't see if she got inside. Around 4 a.m, the police finally showed up, and she went to the driver's window to speak to the officer as we watched through the window of the door. All we could see was a hooded figure standing by the car and being lit up by the red and blue flashing lights, so it looked pretty creepy. After a couple of minutes, she walked away from the car and back to the door to borrow the phone again, because the cop wouldn't take her anywhere. Aaron was pretty fed up at this point, marched out the door and over to the car window. He never noticed that she had followed him and was standing to his side as he told the cop to make his random crazy girl go away. The cop finally realised that we had no idea who she was and told Aaron that all he could do for us was ask her to leave. He turned to her and told her that we want her to leave, and Aaron was a bit startled when he realised she was right next to him the whole time. Thankfully, she started walking down the road, and after a minute or so, the cop followed to make sure she was gone. Fast forward to last March. At this point, my roommates had all moved out, and I was living alone at the house while I finished my final semester. It was just about 5 a.m. Sunday morning, and I had just ended a Skype call with my friend out west while I smoked bong hits when someone started knocking on the door. I immediately hid everything, but I remembered Satan Lady, and as I was in no state of mind to deal with something like that, without backup, so I just waited for them to go away. After a couple of minutes, they were gone, so I went out for a cigarette, and I noticed high-heel shoe tracks in the snow leading to my door. I'm assuming that Satan Lady didn't die after 3 days for refusing to do the devil years ago. And she probably didn't come back years later, but who knows? And since that night, I've had a policy to never answer after midnight, unless I was expecting someone. So, Satan Lady, let's never meet. Number 5. So, a while ago, back when I was 16, I'm 17 now, I was going out for my birthday dinner with my dad. So on our way back from dinner, we're stopped at a stoplight when someone rear ends us. The guy gets out of his car, and my dad gets out of ours. My dad wants the guy to exchange insurance info, but immediately the guy starts acting defensive and calling my dad a fucking faggot asshole. And basically, all this other crap. The guy is yelling and trying to get my dad to get angry, while my dad is basically zen as shit. My dad tells me to call 911 because the guy starts approaching my dad like he might fight him or something. He sees me in the car. I'm a girl, and starts pointing at me and yelling, "What the fuck do we need to get the cops involved for?" But anyways, we call the cops and they show up. We move across to a gas station to sort things out. The rear of our car has a couple of scratches and the light has a crack on it, and the cop is talking to my dad. The guy is still trying to get up and yell at my dad, and the cop has to repeatedly tell him to sit down. The cop lets us go and everything's all dandy. We don't file a report against the guy and everything's chill. Fast forward a month or two and I'm biking to a gas station to return a Red Box movie. I get off my bike and walk up to the Red Box past a bluish black car. As I walk past, the driver gets out and is yelling on his phone about something. I ignore him, go about my business. While I'm waiting for the movie to load back onto the system, I look over and the guy is still yelling on his phone, but he's looking right at me, just staring while he yells. I recognise him as being the guy from the rear-ending situation. I get this panicky feeling inside me and start freaking out. What do I do? Does he recognise me? Is he mad at me? Do I think he'll try anything? So, I thought the smartest thing to do was try to get home as quickly as possible, which is about a 10-15 minute bike ride. I quickly walk back the way I came, but giving his car a much wider berth. His eyes follow me the whole time. He starts towards me like he wants to say something, still yelling into his phone. But then I get on my bike and start noping right out of there. I look back and he's getting into his car and pulling out of the station. At this point, I'm not going too fast because I'm on the same road with cars, but I turn in the street into a neighbourhood on my right, where there are sidewalks, and I start going as fast as I can. I glance over and his car is pulling down the street, and he's maybe 100 feet behind me. I start really freaking out and pedaling faster. He catches up to me and slows down to fit my pace, and his window rolls down, and he's looking out and yelling, "Hey!" over and over again for about 15 seconds before I go up the street onto this bike trail that luckily cars can't fit onto. His car stops and I keep going and I ride all the way to my house till I feel safe enough to calm down. I don't really ride my bike around there much anymore. So, to the yelly rear-ending car guy, let's never meet. Hey guys, thanks for watching, and if you like this video, give it a thumbs up, leave a comment below, and subscribe to my channel. You can also check out my Facebook and my Twitter. Both links will be found in the description below.